So I had this really weird dream recently where basically my sister and I, being the ages we are now, rather than sharing an apartment, we were still very much living in the house that we shared with our parents before they passed away. Only we were the ages we are now. It was like so many years since our parents had died, and we were still sharing the house essentially. But the inner workings of the house were very different. Like the room that was mine in the dream was actually where my sister's room had been in the real house. And the room that would have been mine in the dream had actually been modified, from the bedroom that was mine, leading into almost resort, high society kind of bathroom, complete with a hot tub and this beautiful sort of tile work and everything. And there was like a little waterfall, built into it. It was really strange. And I was really perturbed and stressed out because we were being visited by our relatives from up north, our aunts, an uncle, grandmother, and two cousins, the sons of the aunt and uncle. And I really didn't want to deal with them. I was kind of like, in the dream just going through a lot, I guess. And essentially my sister in the dream had agreed to go and deal with them. And, you can go lock yourself, hole yourself up in your room and just chill for a little while, de-stress and everything. And there was some work in, sort of like putting together a cardboard box, having to unfold the bedroom door, and then finally, after some work, we got it so that the door could bolt shut, and it had become a real door. Very odd. But I'm like standing in my room, and I'm just sort of taking in the look of the place, and our bedrooms are at the front of the house, so that, I'd be looking out on the front lawn, and so I naturally, which was something I would do in my real room in the house, went over to the window, and I noticed there was a little packet of chocolate fudge Pop-Tarts on my, sort of table beside the bed. Picked it up, started, opening it, eating it, and as I'm looking out the window, I realized, the view out the window is not really as clear as I wish it was. And then I noticed there was this little chain hanging from the ceiling over to my right. So I pulled the chain, and suddenly the entire wall, window and all, opens up like a garage door. And it opens all the way up so that I'm basically seeing the nighttime front lawn, the dew on the grass and everything. It was almost, because of the moon light and everything, there was almost like a dark blue. And it was just really beautiful, but I realized it was dawn because when I looked over to my right, the sun was coming up and the sky was this beautiful, like, dark blue going into the pinks and the golds of the sun coming up. Over the back of the house, as it were, of this neighbor of ours that we used to live by, we called Farmer Rich, because he was always out there gardening and everything, and for some reason had a penchant for always staring at us when we'd come out to check our mail and everything, like he suspected the young kids of being, trouble. But in the dream, as I'm looking at the grass, I realize there's something scurrying around in the grass, and it looks white and furry, and immediately, because it's a very vivid dream, I'm kind of half conscious during it, I think it's my gerbil Jake, who is a white gerbil. And as I get a better look, I kind of almost binocular vision zoom in on it. It turns out to be this ferret-shaped animal, but then as I zoom in closer, I realize its face and sort of front claws are very much like a sloth. But it's perfectly white, and the only thing to denote that there's a face are two little black eyes, a little black nose, and a little black mouth. And so I'm eating these Pop-Tarts, and I start throwing crumbs, and the crumbs become little like cake balls or something. And so it starts picking them up and eating them. The next thing I know, this animal is coming into my room, only it has changed into now an almost gazelle-like animal. And apparently it's like rifling into my right pocket, trying to get at more snacks, and I was out of snacks at that point. And I realized my wallet was in my pocket, so I'm like trying to get, this gazelle out of my pocket, and he's kind of looking at me like he's perturbed. So then I start going on and explaining to this gazelle animal, with its horns in my face and giving me this odd look, that he can't have my wallet because there's some kind of Vulcan, Star Trek reference. I don't know what the hell I was telling this animal in my dream. I remember the word Vulcan came into mind. And so then the animal, this gazelle, is like starting to get upset with me, and it's starting to notch, against me like he's going to headbutt me or something. And I remember grabbing onto the horns. The horns weren't straight like most gazelles are. They were kind of curly, almost like an elk's antlers or something. And I grab onto them, and I basically twist his neck, not to kill him, but to leverage his weight so that I could lift him up, and I end up lifting him up, tossing him out onto the yard. I rush over to pull that chain to get the garage door wall to close again, and it fails. I have to do it again, and finally it's starting to close. And just as it's getting to the bottom, he's starting to get his hoofs, under the door, and I'm trying to kick him out. His snout comes through. I smack his snout, and just as finally it came to a close, boom, I woke up. And the only thing I can say is a day later, I ended up getting Pop-Tarts. Like, they were gifted to me by a neighbor. So I don't know if that's a prophecy or just